Art History Online presents A Sunday on La Grande Jatte by French painter Georges Seurat. The impressive oil on canvas painting, it measures over 200 by 300 centimeters, is also known as A Sunday Afternoon on the island of La Grande Jatte, or in French as Un dimanche après-midi à l'île de la Grande Jatte. Seurat started working on this painting in 1884, but finished it in 1886. After Seurat's early death in 1891, at the age of 31, the painting was owned by first his mother, next his brother. It is said that Seurat's probable cause of death was an infectious disease, like infectious angina, meningitis, pneumonia, or diphtheria. From 1900, the painting was in hands of private owners. In 1926, the last owners have donated it to the Art Institute of Chicago. In this painting, Seurat depicted multiple people relaxing and animals playing in what seems to be a park bordering water. As the title explains, it actually concerns the island of La Grande Jatte, which is located in Paris, in the river the Seine. The lines on the canvas form an asymmetrical composition. A horizontal line is suggested along the coastline. If we draw a vertical line in the middle, along this central female figure, we can see that both sides are ordered differently. To me, several diagonals determine the perception of the painting most. What strikes me the most is a line that draws my eye from the lower left to the upper right, from the reclined man to the heads of the couple in the front. But we can indicate more diagonals. Yet Seurat probably used a way more thought-out division of the surface and a clever interplay of lines. According to the Art Institute of Chicago, Seurat's preparatory work involved numerous sketches, 28 drawings, 28 panels, and 3 larger canvases. If we draw a grid of, for example, 3 by 3, it makes sense Seurat could have used such a grid to arrange the composition. Looking at the painting, we can also perceive many parallel lines, for example these diagonals. There's a certain rhythm, creating a sense of space and distance. Such a repetition is also visible in horizontals, and again in vertical lines. All these lines link the separate figures in the suggested space. The sense of space is also created by using picture planes that sometimes overlap, but they mostly define distance by difference in size. The further the subject is removed from the viewer, the smaller it is depicted. The first plane depicts a declined man smoking a pipe, a standing couple, 2 dogs and a monkey. Then on the left we can see a woman reading and a man gazing forward. Also 2 women are seated in the grass. Next there's a woman fishing, accompanied by a seated woman. In the center, a woman and a girl are holding hands. On the far right there are some unidentifiable parts, perhaps the skirt of another figure outside the frame. On the left, a man is playing a trumpet. In the center, a girl is running towards an object. It might be a trash can. The next plane staged several figures, some trees, a fisherman on a boat, soldiers, a few boats and another dog. Parallel to the horizon, there's a coastline. Some buildings are vaguely visible. The last planes contain some foliage and the sky. Looking at the painting, we can see soft colors, many pastels. Yet Seurat didn't use such a palette. He only used a small range of colors, applied in tiny dots which are optically blended. How does this work? Instead of mixing colors on a palette, his technique relies on the ability of the human eye and mind to blend the separate dots of color, in order to create a more vivid and luminous effect. Seurat is seen as the inventor of this technique, called pointillism. If we take a look at some details, it's not that hard to imagine the amount of time it took to apply all those dots, a calculated juxtaposing of colors, on this monumental canvas. As said before, Seurat started a Sunday on la Grande Jatte in 1884 and didn't finish it before 1886. Another special feature of this painting is the innovative use of complementary colors that are opposite each other on the color wheel. Seurat didn't just use a conventional opposition of dark and light to enhance colors and to depict lighting and shading, but also by juxtaposing complementary colors. Let's take a look at the detail of contrasting lighting and shading in the grass. It's a great example of Seurat's use of complementary colors. The lighted and shaded area have a dark green in common, but the lighted section further consists of a lighter green and yellow. Meanwhile, the shaded area consists of red and blue. In the wheel of color, the used yellow and green are analogous, but complementary to the blue and red. Another beautiful example can be found in the woman holding a parasol. Her skirt consists of pink and orange, yet it casts a blue shadow. Seurat's color practice was greatly influenced by several color theorists, for example the contemporary chemist Michel-Eugène Gevreux, who researched the principles of color contrasts. Despite the intended luminous effect of the colors, the painting has a somewhat static character. Even though there is activity in the painting, the placing of the figures translates into a formal stiffness. A note of criticism was that Seurat only depicted the figures sideways or straight on, like rigid toy soldiers, or like in ancient art. The Stoic character might have been critiqued, the influence of ancient art was recognized by contemporary critics. As Seurat himself said, he intended to make modern people in their essential traits move about as they do on ancient Greek friezes and place them on canvases organized by harmonies, thereby seeking a sense of timelessness, a sense of permanence. He specifically referred to the Parthenon frieze by Phidias, which was initially placed in Athens, Greece. A Sunday on la Grande Jatte was first shown in 1886 at the 8th and last Impressionist exhibition. The painting embraced, but also challenged several ideals of the Impressionist movement. It shows an ongoing Impressionist influence in use of color and light, visible brushstrokes and subjects, yet it displays divergent choices in size, composition and technique. Unlike the Impressionist tradition, Seurat didn't paint a spontaneous picture, capturing a fleeting moment. He chose a more academic approach. He did extensive preparatory studies and took his time to work on the canvas in the studio. He departed from the loose brushstrokes and applied calculated dots of color. This method allowed him to paint a more complex, large-scale composition. A Sunday on la Grande Jatte marks the start of a new direction in avant-garde painting, which thanks to art critic Félix Fénéon came to be known as Neo-Impressionism. The scene depicts various characters in different activities, men and women, young and old, of different social classes, soldiers and boaters. The figures are sitting or standing, chatting, strolling, parading, or just gazing forward. What does Seurat want to tell us with this picture? The painting seems to be a coherent unity, though the scene is not readily explained. What are the relationships between the different figures? Does Seurat want to make a point by depicting different social classes side by side? Why is there a monkey present? According to the Art Institute of Chicago, by some, a Sunday on la Grande Jatte is interpreted as a depiction of the growing middle class at leisure, but by others as a representation of social tensions between different social classes who hang out in the same public places, but do not interact. Supporters of the alleged social commentary say Seurat used several symbols. The monkey would represent a prostitute. In French, a female monkey is called a zonzesse, which could also be used in reference to a prostitute. Some also suggest that an earlier work, The Bathers of Asnières, is to be considered as a pendant. In The Bathers of Asnières, Seurat depicted the opposite side of the river, the bank in the suburbs of Asnières, where the working class resides. This portrayal of casual real life would then contrast the bourgeois artificiality in A Sunday on la Grande Jatte. Though we can't be sure of the intended meaning, we can state that the Sunday on La Grande Jatte is a key work in art history, announcing a new direction known as Neo-Impressionism. What makes the Sunday on La Grande Jatte such a remarkable painting is the scientific approach and the balancing between apparent contradictions, such as tradition and innovation, modernity and timelessness. Seurat achieved his particular ideals and technique at a very young age. He was 26 when he finished A Sunday on La Grande Jatte. Unfortunately, because of his early death, his oeuvre is not so extensive. Still, I'd like to share my personal favorite, Le Chahut. Thank you for watching this video by Art History Online. I hope you've enjoyed it. Feel free to like, comment or check out the other videos.